What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the newest episode of the Bleav in Oregon podcast. I'm Zachary, Neel. My co-host over there is Jonathan Stewart. Stu, what's up, man? How we doing?
Doing good, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. How much of that game did you actually get to watch last night?
I got to watch up until somewhere mid of the third quarter, and I
Okay,
fell asleep.
yeah, and
I went
I
to,
I almost fell asleep
I
watching it
fell
as well.
asleep. It was a late game. Um, some things happened in the second quarter. We'll discuss and
Yeah,
get our opinions on. But once that kind of happened, I was like, this could be interesting. And then as the third quarter went by, it was a boring third quarter, and you know we we managed that game the right way, I
yeah,
think, on an away game. But
yeah.
we'll get into that.
Especially with a short week too, with the
Yeah,
next game coming on Friday. So
Friday.
just to recap for those who did not see, 34-13 win for the Ducks. Like Stu said, really good first half, really good first quarter, second quarter until the final drive of the second quarter. We'll talk about. Well, actually, let's talk about it now. Tough end to the first half with the 96-yard pick six from Dylan Gabriel. Not a great start to the second half either. The Ducks had their only two punts of the game on their first two drives in the third quarter, but then they kind of just ran out the clock for the rest of the game, and they really looked like they wanted to get out of the game and get on to this short week and get out of there with the win. So you texted me early this morning. God, really, really early. I don't know even what time that text came in, but you texted me early and you said, quote, "I told you about that spread." I replied, "I think we both were right."
Hmm.
You predicted UCLA would cover in a close game. I predicted a blowout where the defense wouldn't give up a touchdown. In the end, I kind of think we both were right, if that's really
Yeah,
even possible.
yeah, I think absolutely. I think when you see a spread like that, and knowing what we know about what we've seen out of Oregon, this is one of those games, an away game, where this could be an absolute growth moment, test,
Hmm.
whatever you want to call it. It was that. And they found a way to win. They found a way to keep it not close. And the defense played a hell of a game, in my
Hmm.
opinion. They played an inferior team, an inferior offense, and they kept them there for the
Yeah.
majority of the game. So they did their job. I just want to see. There's just I saw your tweet as far as uh, having two complete halves, and tired of
Hasn't happened
having
yet.
having the I'm like, what you don't want against these types of teams is the tail of the halves. Tail of two
Mhm.
halves. You should go in and basically start the engine, let it let it rev up,
Mhm.
let it warm up, and then you press the gas, and you don't
Mhm.
let off until the game's over. And at
Mhm.
that point, it can be third quarter, the game's over, and you put your second string, your third string guys in there, and get them some quality reps. This is one of those games, and the offense. I know offense at the end of the day is a finicky deal. Like, a lot of things have to go well in order for you to be dominant on the offensive side of the ball. And for whatever reason, I think, we learned what momentum does in a game. And I
Mhm.
think that pick six going into the second half is what we saw them tank a little bit. Um, and as far as, you have all the momentum, you're gonna go down there, you're gonna score. I mean, you go in to the locker room, you're up by 30 something, right? And
Should be.
instead you're, going into the locker room like, dang, we left something out there. So the
It was a
confidence thing
14
is,
point swing right there. Yeah, in that
yeah,
one play.
yeah, in one play. Um, so it's nothing to be alarmed about. I think
Mhm.
you look back at the Idaho game is definitely the worst version of that.
Mhm.
Dylan Gabriel still played a brilliant game. 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, made sound decisions. I think that was just his worst decision of the year so far. And, receivers slipping and whatnot, not there to
Even
combat
if
for the
Tez
ball.
didn't slip there, that was still,
Still bad. Yeah.
still a terrible pass.
Yeah.
I think what it boils down to for me is, you're at the point of the season now where you want consistency. You
Yeah.
want to be able to trust that this team can go out there. They don't have to play a brilliant 4 quarters, but you want to play really good for 4 quarters and not have any of those drives or any of those moments where you show, what we saw in week 1 and kind of have those like mental errors and stuff. Where we saw last year that Oregon, Dan Lanning said a lot last year that this team did not put together a complete game for the first 4 weeks. It wasn't until, there was times against Colorado in week 4 they did it, and they eventually got better as, in the middle of the season. We're still waiting for that, 4-quarter performance from the Ducks this year, and we're getting to the part of the season where you need to expect to see it. It's okay, you don't expect a complete game in the early part of the season because everything's new, they're fresh, there's new players, new transfers. But now we're getting to the point where it's like, all right, we need to see them put together 4 quarters of play. Let's start with just some biggest takeaways. What were kind of the biggest things that you walked away from this game with?
Tez Johnson is really good.
Oh, really? Did we not know that
No,
coming into this
no,
game?
no. But I think the takeaways is that you got playmakers on this offense. They know how to start fast. We know how to do that. And we know how to come in clutch in the second half. We've displayed all of those things throughout the season so far. And I truly Bleav that we are just around the corner of putting, our best product of football on the field. And, what better time, this Friday, facing Michigan State. This is an opportunity for you to really show up and put it all on the line, because from here on out, that's got to be the name of the game. Uh, I really enjoyed the fact that we understood, a road game. Uh, we come out a little bit swinging for the fences and swinging and missing in the third quarter. So what do? You run the ball, right? Run the clock out and get out of there. And there's no, at the end of the day, sometimes you just got to win those games and get out of there. and
Yeah.
so kudos to coaching in that standpoint, of understanding what's at stake at the end of the day. And yeah, I think our defense, just being able to, get three and what's harder on defense is getting 3 and outs, in my opinion.
Mhm.
You can always bail and say, "Hey, we need turnovers." But 3 and outs, that's crushing to an offense.
Yeah.
Um, our defensive line was getting after it. Jordan Birch, he was very active early on in the game, making his presence felt in the backfield, disturbing the quarterback. Stuff like that. I love to see it, especially as we go into our Big Ten, you know, um, the original Big Ten, I guess you would say, right? Uh, and really put that on display for teams to take notice as far as, okay, this guy's a problem, right?
Mhm.
And so it's a tale of two halves, and it has been. But I feel like looking at the season so far, we've been able to see all these things happen to where we should feel good about going into the rest of the season and being able to put all that on one plate, so to speak.
Yeah. I agree. I have kind of a general takeaway, and I'm honestly not sure if it's all positive, but this is just kind of what I left last night feeling after. I'm assuming that you watched the Alabama Georgia game that was on right before. Just incredible, incredible game. After watching that, I'm not quite confident that Oregon is on that level just yet. I mean, you think that's the highest level of college football right now, Alabama or Georgia. I know that was kind of a tale of two halves as well, but those are two championship caliber teams. Um, I haven't
Yeah,
seen anything. Go
yeah, like
ahead.
that you're talking about that edge, like that feeling of, hey, the game's on the line. It's
Those
tie
are,
game.
yeah. those are
and we
two
need a big play.
championship caliber football teams. Like, you could see
Yeah.
either of them make it to the championship this year, and it's like, yeah, that makes sense. They've got the talent, the coaching, their performance, they're putting it on the field. I have not seen anything from the Ducks so far this year that convinces me that they quote unquote belong on that field with Alabama or Georgia last night. What
I
I've seen so
mean,
far, they would have gotten run off the field last night by either of those teams.
yeah. Georgia legitimately had to nut up and put some score points on the board because they were losing,
And
and they
credit
weren't
to
lo
them,
they
man. It
they
would
were
have been
losing in
so
a
easy for them
they
to
were
just walk away from that game in the second half.
it would have been like if UCLA would have just came back on Oregon
Yeah,
and won the game,
yeah.
or I made it close.
And I mean, you know, it's I don't want to be too negative and say that Oregon can't get there because I really believe that they can. And we've seen in stretches the offense in the first two quarters last night looked incredible. But they've been inconsistent. The defense, has been really dominant in stretches. Last night you talked about three and outs. I don't have the three and outs numbers, but I know that UCLA was 1 for 10 on third downs and had 47 rushing yards. The Ducks got 4 sacks, 2 interceptions. But we've seen this defense kind of get gashed by elite rushers before too. They gave up a ton of yards to Ashton Genty. Obviously, that's a different category because he's incredible in his own right. But it's still a long season. But I'm just not yet convinced this is a championship caliber team. It's playoff caliber for sure, but I think that we need to see some consistent dominance from this team or some success against elite competition, which granted we will see that opportunity in a couple weeks with Ohio State. I can no longer hear you. You're muted. There you
6.6
go.
yards per pass. I mean, we look at that and say, all right, well, cool. That's, half of getting a first down per pass. But I think against a team like that, it's got to be a little bit more, right?
Mhm.
And I look at this just the statistics in this game. I'm okay with this outcome if it's, you know, a different team. you know,
If it's a
uh,
better team, yeah.
yeah, if it's a better team, like nine
Yeah.
9 for 15 third down efficiency, that's pretty good, right?
Yeah.
But what's happened is those 6 missed opportunities come at really pivotal times where, we miss. We don't have points to score. We miss opportunities to just put anything on the board, right? So I think that's kind of where it's like the difference of the halves. Like, hey, which person are you going to be throughout the whole game? We don't need, the flashes for just one period of time, because just like you talked about with Georgia and Alabama, those guys they play the whole game, and
Mhm.
they have to play the whole game in order for them to give themselves a chance, to compete at that level. And you just wonder kind of where the like where are the mental, stabilities? Where are the mental gaps on this team, especially on offense? Again, I
Mhm.
think our defense has come along very strong,
Mhm.
and has done their job for the most part throughout the whole season. Early on, the run game has been questionable, stopping the run maybe, but I think they've proven, hey, we're taking coaching, we're developing, we're growing, and we just need the offense to just be able to click whenever they want to click against teams that have no chance.
Yeah, it's just about we've said it before already this episode. It's just about consistency. And I mean, I'm gonna get into some remaining concerns if you have any, but I'll get into mine. And it's just that it's the inability to play a complete game. You can look great 90% of the time, but that other percent of the time other 10% of the time we saw three and outs and a 96-yard pick six from Dylan Gabriel. So, we're getting into that part of the season where you need to see the consistency because at this point I don't know that I trust this team not to play a bad half against a championship caliber team.
Yeah.
They could play a really good half, but they could absolutely beat Georgia and they could fall down to Ohio State in the first two quarters. And we haven't seen the opportunity of this team to come back and fight back in that situation. So I think they'd be able to, but it's just, I'd like to not have to be in that position. Do you have any remaining concerns after this game?
No, not at all, really. Um,
Okay.
I would like to see. Um, I would actually like to see Evan Stewart
Hmm.
um, be a little bit more understanding of down and distance, getting up the field. Like, what are you doing with the ball after you catch the ball?
Hmm.
If it's not a home, every play is not going to be a home run, but you don't want to lose those 1 to 2 yards just because you're trying to figure out a way to escape. You know,
Hmm.
because those 1 to 2 yards as you go play, high caliber teams, like the Ohio State game, right? You can't have you can't miss out on those 1 or 2 yards because they're gonna come up to bite you at some point in the game where you're third and 2. Well, you're 3rd and 2 because you went backwards when you caught a 3-yard slant. So
Hmm.
just stuff like that. I think the little things really need to come in play, you know, as the season progresses.
Evan Stewart is an interesting case too because he came into this year. There was so much hype about him, the talent around, or the talent that he has, and what he was going to bring to this offense. He's been really quiet so far. I don't know if it's a
Hmm.
case of just not really finding that connection with Dylan Gilbert yet. He kind of feels like how Trayshawn Holden was last year with Bo Nix, where it took the better part of the season or 3 quarters of the season for him to really find that role and carve out his role in the offense. I think he had 4 targets last night, 3 catches for 9 yards. For this, I'm not going to say that this offense needs him to be elite because they've shown that they can be really damn good with Tez Johnson and Trayshawn Holden and Terrence Ferguson. But man, it would be nice when you talk about that home run ball to get him more opportunities. But like you said, he also needs to understand his ability in the offense and accept the single, accept the double, and
Hmm.
not always be going for that home run and take what he can get.
Yeah, because every defense you play is different, right? There's
Mhm.
different guys at different positions that are gonna have your area on the field covered. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So you just got to make sure you're doing everything, the little things and details to where you end up making a play, right? I
Mhm.
mean, it's almost kind of like a counter, right? You keep running counter, you keep running counter, you keep running counter, then you toss, right?
Mhm.
Toss play, right? Or vice versa, toss, 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 counter, right? And then play action off of those things. So you catch a slant, 3-yard slant. All right, just go upfield, go upfield, go upfield, go upfield. Oh, wait, juke move. Now I'm hitting the sideline, right? You got to bait these guys in. Just continue to do what you do and what you're supposed to do. And then in that given moment that you've earned, that's when you commit. You know what I'm saying? To
Mhm.
finding ways to escape. Because right now, if I'm a DB, I'm just saying to myself, my MO is just going to be waiting for him to shake me out of my shoes, which I'm not going to get shaken out of my shoes. I'm just going to make the tackle
Mhm.
for a 1 yard loss I have to catch. Um, so yeah, just I think those types of things, you can probably point those types of things across it, offensive line, you know, tight end, every position. You can probably point out something like that as far as the details on this
Mhm.
offense.
Let's get into 3 quacks and highlight some guys that really stood out to us in this game. I'll start out someone that's we haven't mentioned yet, but I think really played well. Jordan James had another 100-yard game, 103 rushing yards with 1 touchdown. He did get the carries that you wanted. You asked for 18 carries from him. He got 20. So
20.
I thought this was a very good game for him. And also, just a sidebar to this, just the offensive line I think played really well. No
Yeah.
sacks for Dylan Gabriel. So and they allowed a lot of rushing yards for Jordan James and opened up some holes for him.
Yeah. I will go Tez Johnson, right?
Mhm.
I think at this point we expect him to have good games. He's obviously Dylan Gabriel's favorite target at this point in the
Yeah,
season. Um, but that that 54-yard touchdown, I think it was 54 yards.
52, I think, but yeah, 50 plus.
Yeah, 50 plus that touchdown, that connection, it was brilliant. I mean, I just love those are the types of plays you want to see out of your star receiver. Just showing up and pivotal moments in the game. That last touchdown, in the fourth quarter where they finally got into the end zone was just good to just see, right? All right, they're still capable of closing a game, right? So um that was nice. And so I would say Tez Johnson just being, dominant, on those levels. I mean, earlier in the game, he had that end zone drop where it would have been a spectacular catch. I don't know if you remember that. It was in the corner of the end zone.
Yeah, I remember that.
But other than that, I mean, he's been balling, and I don't expect anything less.
Exactly. He's living up to expectations, and those expectations were very high coming into this year. Devin Jackson, I have been super impressed with this kid. He brought out the what do you call it? The collar, the cowboy collar. Is that what you
Cowboy
call it?
collar.
The
Yeah.
cowboy collar. I think this was like maybe his first game with that. I kind of loved the look. 4 tackles. He was really good in coverage as well. He had a really big pass breakup down the right sideline where he was asked to go out and cover a tight end. So I've just really been impressed with what I've seen from him, not just in this game, but so far this year. I think he's really stepping up. And for whatever reason, we're still continuing to see kind of a limited role for Jeff Bossa and Justin Jacobs, while Devin Jackson and Bryce Betcher play really big roles. So I think they're answering the call very well.
Yeah. And then for me, with this, are we doing 3 each?
Yeah, do one more,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Jordan Birch,
Yeah.
1 sack, 2 tackles for loss. When you got a guy like that on your squad and he comes out and he, gives, what you expect him to give, I love to see it. Setting the tone early and often, especially on defense is very important. So, shout out to him just being, active. I love to see active guys. I mean, I watched the Chiefs play today, and Chris Jones and just how dominant this man is. I think of a guy like that. I mean, he's just as valuable as Patrick Mahomes but just on defense, and he's a defensive lineman. So having guys that just understand down and distance, just has the football. What's the word? Uh, just the football knowledge, right? Football brain, and just knowing when I can just pin my ears back and get after the quarterback, understanding what they're trying to do in the running game. Let me just go ahead and shut that down, get a tackle for loss, whatever it is that you need, I'm here for it. So kudos to him.
And that's what was fun about last night. I mean, when we talked to Connor Onion, the Fox play-by-play analyst last week, he told us like UCLA does not run the ball very well, so Oregon's going to be able to just pin their ears back and get after the passer. They did that. It was a little bit frustrating early on because they kept coming around the edges and trying to collapse the pocket. But
Yeah.
then when it became clear that Ethan Garbers, UCLA's quarterback, was not very mobile and just could not get out of the pocket, they started bringing pressure up through the middle and through the inside and just kind of disrupting everything. So I thought it was really a good adjustment to see.
I think what they probably planned for was to make sure they contained the pocket, because you got to remember, these are the reasons why I get frustrated when I see my teams, like the Panthers or my Ducks, do stupid things, or because it's basically putting on film that you can be exposed in certain lights, right? So other teams are going to watch film. And last week when we played Oregon State, they were able to see their quarterback get busy getting outside the pocket, right, and extend plays. And so I'm pretty sure what Oregon did was prepare for the fact that, hey, if UCLA is going to try anything, they're going to try to escape out of the pocket. And so their plan was probably absolutely to contain. And then once they realized that they didn't have anything in the tank, just find that those
just bringing up the middle,
those TE stunts. Let's get in the middle.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so after these post game shows, I always want to end with this kind of our season outlook. The Ducks are now 4-0. We were both very high on this team coming into the year. We both predicted 12-0 in the regular season. You still feel really good about that? What's your mindset right now after this?
Um, I still feel pretty good about it. I think, we will see, right?
Mhm.
Because,
In 2 weeks, we'll see.
well, I think really like we got Michigan State. Let me look at the schedule right quick.
Michigan State, Ohio State, and then I Bleav it's Purdue. I know
Okay.
the next two are Michigan State, Ohio State.
So Michigan State, they're 3-2. Um, trying to figure. We're doing a little bit of early studying for you guys.
Well,
Yeah.
the telling thing for me while you do this is going to be how Oregon plays against Michigan State on Friday night, because we watched
Yeah.
Ohio State play them this week. I Bleav there was 38-7, if I'm remembering the score correctly. That might be a little bit off,
Yeah,
but I know they played them
38-7.
well.
It was
They played
38-7.
them well. They looked good. So if Oregon can do the same thing against Michigan State, yeah,
Yeah.
I feel good about that game. We'll see how it goes. These are two quote unquote evenly matched teams, Ohio State and Oregon. So,
Yeah.
but I mean, if Oregon struggles with Michigan State, because it probably is the one of the most talented teams they've faced so far this year, it could be a little bit telling.
Yeah. I mean, because Michigan State also lost to Boston College, who's 4-1. Boston College is lost to Mizzou,
Yeah.
27-21. They beat Florida State, a terrible Florida State team, earlier in the season,
Anyone could beat Florida State.
28-13. So this is
Yeah.
technically a team that isn't that good, right? So,
Yeah.
so Michigan State shouldn't be
Michigan
that
State is
good.
a very mobile quarterback, though, and we know that
Yeah,
that can be a
that can be
Achilles
a
heel for the
problem.
Ducks.
Yeah. So, um, yeah, because he's got what? I mean, he had one touchdown. Trying to
I don't
find.
know Aiden Child's stats. I just know that he is
I'm looking it up
throwing
right
you
now
down in
as
the
we speak.
pocket. Yeah, please do.
Ohio State. Beep beep. Okay. Charles. Child, please. 13 for 19. Dang, they didn't throw the ball at all, and they were losing. Yeah.
What was
Charles
his rushing stats?
Charles had -9 yards. So
Okay,
um
probably some sacks in there, I would
so
assume.
yeah. Defense was 1, 2.5, 3, 4 sacks. 4 sacks on
Okay,
the guy.
but on the
A lot of a
season,
lot of a lot of tackles for loss. 7 tackles
on the
for loss.
season, Aiden Childs has 86 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns. So he
He
definitely
shouldn't be
can
doing
get out
too
of the
much.
pocket and
But he
scramble.
shouldn't be doing too
Well,
much.
Well, you should hope that Oregon gets up big enough early on to make them have to throw a lot. But as we saw against Ohio State, they still didn't throw too
Mhm.
much, even though they were down a lot.
You know what I think? I feel like Michigan State could be Ohio State's like Oregon State, right? We
You're gonna have
just
to
treat it
explain
that
that a
way.
little bit more.
Just more so in the sense of like the caliber of team, right?
Okay.
Um, and so I'm pretty sure Ohio State probably went in this game thinking to themselves, all right, we gotta blow these guys out. They're not that good. This is what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
So
I see what you're
we
saying
gotta
there.
go in the same, we have to have the same mindset.
Yeah. I think
Go
they
in there,
will too.
go in there, Oregon, and just blow them out of the water and just leave no questions about how good you are at the end of the
They
day.
also they also know that they're going into this game. It's not just a Saturday afternoon game. They know this is the primetime spot on Friday. The
Yeah.
nation is going to be watching. They're going to be wearing
Mm,
these nice new yellow uniforms, the Stomp Out Cancer uniforms. I don't know if you saw those released today.
yeah.
Those are
I
really
saw
cool.
those. Pretty
The
cool.
story behind them is incredible. They're going to look to show something. They know that the eyes of the nation are on them. So I'm really not concerned. I think that the early spread on that game was like 25.5. So it
Hmm.
should be another game where the Ducks can get busy in the first half, and hopefully this time we get to see some depth players in the second half, because once again We expected to see that against UCLA, like we expected to see the first 2 weeks of the season. Didn't get to because they were inconsistent and didn't finish. So maybe it'll be different this time. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, it looks like Ohio State put a beating on them. Actually,
Yeah.
They started off slow. Second
Mhm.
quarter, they got really busy.
They also their quarterback got dinged up. I think he came back in the second half, but he was out for a little bit. I know.
Okay. Yeah, they're showing
Yeah,
three quarterbacks that played.
Devin Brown played. Will Howard played. I don't know who the other one
Well,
was, but
Devin Brown came in there and scored a touchdown too.
yeah, he did. That was a touchdown to Jeremiah Smith, which is an incredible
Jeremiah
catch.
Smith, the running back
There's
or
the
a
wide
receiver.
receiver, the true
Yeah.
freshman receiver, who's like the best in the nation.
Oh wow. Well,
All
yeah,
right, let's.
he had a rushing touchdown as well.
He
We gotta
is
look at this. We gotta
I
look at this
cannot
film.
wait to watch him play. He is so good.
Yeah.
All right, that's going to do it for us today.
All
Thank you
right.
guys for tuning in on YouTube. Again, go subscribe to the show, rate, review, all that stuff. Help us grow our audience, please. Stu, do you have anything to add before we get out of here and record on Tuesday?
Nope. Don't overreact. Everything is perfectly fine. They beat UCLA in perfect fashion.
Did what they needed to do.
Yeah, they did what they needed to do.
All right. You can check out more of my work at duckswire.usatoday.com. Follow me at Zachary C. Neel on Twitter. Follow Stu on Twitter at JonathanStewR1. And make sure to check out the Bleav and Panthers podcast and the Stu and Crew podcast. For myself, Zach Neel, for my co host, Jonathan Stewart, we will talk to you guys on Tuesday. Until then, take it easy.